Hello, how you doing? Hope you're doing good. Welcome to episode 2 of the Reflections podcast. Today, I'm really excited to be speaking with co-managing director of Evoluted, Giorgio Cassella. Evoluted are an agency which I've been really impressed with for a long time. They do some great things from a people and culture perspective and place a big emphasis on career development. Giorgio also wrote a really great article recently in Prolific North about his approach to leadership and why he wants to take a different approach to many others in the industry. So yeah, really looking forward to this one. It should be a fascinating conversation. If you enjoy the podcast, I'd really appreciate it if you could like it, leave a comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel, all the usual stuff. So yeah, let's get going. Yeah, welcome, Giorgio. How are you doing today?
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, Sean. Thank you very much for having me on.
I just wondered if you could start off by telling everyone a little bit about you and also a random fact that maybe no one will know about you as well.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Giorgio. That's my fancy name, but lack of any accent might suggest I am half Italian, but never learned to speak the language. I'm the managing director at Evoluted, and we are a full service agency based in Sheffield. So we do design, development, marketing, the whole shebang, really. And I started here as a technical SEO about 4.5 years ago before becoming marketing director and now managing director. I guess I work alongside my co-MD, Sam Biggins, to lead Evoluted through a really exciting new period of growth over the next kind of few years. And I think unusually for most agencies, it's that whole thing of having two MDs. Because we've got that full service specialty, it's really useful kind of having two people. Sam's got the development side of the knowledge, I've got the marketing side of the knowledge, and it's like really good to complement each other's skills. I guess outside of work, I'm a massive gamer, I'm a drummer. I do a lot of reading, but both are taking the back seat at the moment as I have bought my first house with my partner, and we're doing a lot of DIY. And I guess as for a random fact that nobody would know, I'm a huge metalhead, massive Iron Maiden superfan, and have a number of tattoos that are not very visible. But I left the long hair and the extensive range of piercings behind quite a long time ago now.
Yes, also a fellow metalhead and also a fellow drummer as well. And yeah, I think my long hair is not there, not out of choice, but literally because I just can't grow it anymore. So yes, but you're the second guest that I've talked to that has some tattoos that you can't see.
Yep.
So that's awesome. That sounds like an amazing journey to kind of where you've got to so far, and congratulations on becoming managing director, I guess fairly recently. I guess what inspired you to take that pathway towards leadership? I guess can you go back and talk about that journey to become MD?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I guess like a lot of people who end up in leadership and management roles, I never actually expected to do so, and I never really pursued it actively. It was very much an accidental journey that I've taken. I first fell into management and leadership around kind of 6, 7 years ago when I first moved to Sheffield to join an early stage edtech startup. I was employee number 3, focused entirely on the marketing and the growth of that business. And naturally, as part of that, I ended up kind of hiring for, leading and managing a team of marketers on a variety of different disciplines. And eventually left that company at the point where we had 30 plus people, 10 million in revenue, and a fair amount of leadership experience under my belt. At that point, I left and came back to being an individual contributor, coming to Evoluted because I wanted to explore the agency side of marketing, loved technical SEO, and just wanted to spend more time doing that rather than managing teams and strategy. Did that for about 1.5 years before the existing head of marketing decided he wanted to move on and go freelance. And because of my previous experience, I was asked to step up into that role. Again, a completely accidental thing, falling into that leadership position, but a really exciting opportunity to take things on, work with a brilliant team of people here at Evoluted, a team of 8 at the time. And over the 2 years since then, when I started in Jan 2020, bit of a trial by fire to take over a marketing team in that year. I built the team up through, great hiring decisions, having a really strong team behind us here to now a team of almost 20 on the marketing side of the agency. Again, completely accidentally, in September last year, Evoluted's founder, Ash, decided to step back from leading the company after we've been running for 16 years to pursue some of his other interests and welcome a new child into his family. So a great time for him to say, right, putting the brakes on things, taking a little bit of a step back. which was, again, an amazing opportunity for myself and Sam to step up into that co-MD role, leading the two different sides of Evoluted. And yeah, here we are. Like I say, it's a completely unexpected thing. I never pursued a career in management. I always wanted to go into the individual contributor side of marketing, had a real success before getting into SEO, working in media buying across the world. But yeah, here we are. It's an exciting challenge, a new adventure, both for me and for the company. And yes, I think most people probably have expected me to have had a more direct pursuit of a position like this.
Yeah, sure. So it sounds like you mentioned the word accidental a few times there. So I guess it kind of just sounds like based on the experiences that you've had as an individual contributor and being able to kind of lead people with that experience and that knowledge, that's kind of then positioned you to take on that role where you can kind of lead the wider team, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I say, I never took a really direct approach to becoming a leader, but the reason I've always said yes to these opportunities and stepped up and done that stuff, and I think succeeded in it, is because of that learning, that knowledge, that genuine desire and care to make an impact, to have a bigger purpose than just myself. The things that I wasn't really able to do as an IC, but as a leader and as a manager, it's the kind of things you can really get into, making a difference to people's lives, to local economies and communities, to our planet, to our society. There's a much greater impact you can have as a leader, which is something I really enjoy and what's actually led me to say yes to those things.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. Giorgio, I guess one of the main reasons I wanted to talk to you on the podcast is because I read a really brilliant, I thought, article that you wrote in Prolific North, where you talked a lot about employee well-being and mental health, and you talked a lot about adopting a people over profit mentality. And there were some interesting things that you wrote in that article as well. You mentioned that you believe that certain agencies maybe even go to the extent of gaslighting their employees into working long hours, making people feel like they have to reach the point of burnout, perhaps to kind of prove themselves. So I guess I see a lot of agencies talking about this kind of people over profit, but it'd be good to kind of hear your views on how an agency really can truly achieve that. And I guess not being something which just ends up being words that they say.
Yeah, totally. Thank you. Thank you for the kind words about the article. I mean, it was a pretty terrifying statistic that Prolific North published, that over half of marketing professionals are experiencing mental health problems, burnout, anxiety, imposter syndrome, mainly due to what they're doing in their jobs. I mean, life's short, right? Why should you have to put up with being miserable just to serve, somebody else, work in a company where you're not happy, where you're not feeling fulfilled? And it was a bit of a call to action for me to have this open letter, this honest assessment of what I'm seeing from a personal perspective, and some of the ways that we at Evoluted are tackling that. We are very strongly people over profits, and I'll go into what we mean by that in a second. But I guess taking that people over profit approach is very much genuinely giving a shit. Sorry, I should have asked first whether you were okay with me swearing on the podcast. We can
absolutely go for it.
Cut that. But yeah, it means genuinely caring, approaching how you run your business with extreme levels of empathy and never stopping trying to evaluate and reevaluate how you can make people's lives that little bit easier and that little bit better. And essentially that becomes the North Star, your guiding principle in how you run a business, how you lead a team, how you take care of people. And a great recent example of this, and I'm sure they won't mind me sharing, just before Christmas, one of our employees suffered a horrific accident, which has left them with potentially life-changing injuries. And that whole point of it being a guiding principle of people over profits, there was absolutely no question, there was no discussion, no meeting, no evaluation. It was instantly, no, let's take care of him. Let's make sure that he knows he's going to be paid for the next month without any issues while he's going through his recovery, and getting appointments in place, seeing doctors, getting professionals to make sure that he's going to be okay, making sure that there is absolutely no stress about his work, about his clients, about anything that's going on, any of the responsibilities, and of course, sending, a get well soon card, a hamper, all that kind of stuff, and putting that phased return in place, making sure that when they're ready to, they can return to work safely and securely. And it's that whole approach. There's no discussion of, oh, what about sick pay and what we allow, and making sure that we get different doctor's notes and certifications in place. That can all come later. The person's the important bit. Let's make sure they're cared for in every way that we possibly can as a company. I guess really critical to note on that point, being people over profits doesn't mean that you have to be a not-for-profit, a social enterprise, or a business that isn't making money. Like, money is the water of life for all businesses. It's really important that you have cash flow coming in. Without the money, the business dies and you have X number of people displaced and looking for new jobs. I mean, that's far worse than not being people over profits. But it's how you use that money that really, really matters and makes a difference. So at Evoluted, we've got really ambitious goals of how we want to grow the business, grow our revenue, grow our profits over time. But those are constantly, like I said before, reevaluated to make sure we're not overstretching, we're not stressing our team out and pushing them too hard at any one time, and we're not ending up in that hyper growth mode that it's really easy to fall into when you are ambitious and you want to grow fast. Because having seen other companies, both in the agency and the startup world, do that, it just causes unnecessary stress for your people, particularly those in the leadership positions. But it's something that impacts everyone and can genuinely lead to a lot of burnout, to a lot of misery, and people moving on because they're not happy. I suppose kind of the last point I wanted to make here is that being people over profits means that a lot of that profit-making exercise is very much about being able to reinvest in people as well. And it's all of these elements that feed into that ethos of being people over profits. Being able to give people great salaries, being able to give people things like, we've done a cost of living payment this year, like I know a lot of other companies have introduced, to help with the rising costs of energy bills, with fuel prices, with food, and everything else that's going on. Being able to give enhanced maternity packages, being able to give people an annual profit share that we do, where we take 20% of our profits and distribute those evenly across the company, regardless of seniority or the contribution that different people make. Everything we do is very much in an effort to enhance the lives of the people that work here and those that are connected to them, their families, their children, everyone.
Awesome. There's a couple of really good points that you made there that I guess I'd want to kind of go back to and pick up on. The second one you made was talking about not overworking people and not stressing people out to the point where they perhaps become burnt out. And I think, like you say, in agency worlds, that workload I've seen, that workload issue is often such a big factor for people, stuck in their job, maybe wanting to kind of leave, causing burnout. How at Evoluted do you kind of manage that so people perhaps aren't kind of overworked?
Yeah, really great question. We have a number of key metrics that we keep an eye on around things like capacity within teams, utilization rates, so the percentage of time that they're spending working on delivery versus other things. And we have a really careful balance so that on an average month, let's say you have 150-ish hours of working time. We want to make sure that our delivery team members are not working any more than 85 to 100 hours on client work tops. That's their delivery time. It makes sure it's nice and low, it makes sure it's manageable, and it makes sure, more importantly, that there's plenty of time around that for the random things that crop up, for annual leave to fit in there, for sick days to fit in there, for the meetings, for the socials, for the cups of tea, the water cooler chats, the personal development and everything that comes with that. And we measure those things really, really carefully to make sure that everybody has a good balance between making sure they're delivering the work we need them to make the company profitable and having that time for development, for the other things that come with a good, healthy working life. We also utilize things like time tracking, and a lot of people may see that as a beating stick to, make sure people are working hard and they're doing their hours every single day. It does help to understand where time's going and making sure that we're delivering for our clients, which, it's the most important thing we do as a service business. What we also do is make sure we have daily emails that come to all of the senior managers of the time that their team is spending to make sure that people aren't overworking, that they're not having to do 9 hours a day instead of 7.5 in order to squeeze things in. And if you can see those consistencies and you start to see trends, it flags things for us so you can make sure to say, what's going on? Is everything okay? Do we need to reassess your workload? Is there something going on at home that's, preventing you from being able to get things done during daytime rather than working late into the evening? All those kinds of things are really critical to making sure that people don't get burnt out, that they have that good work-life balance.
That's a really great point. So I really liked the fact that you're not just kind of, I guess, counting the whole of their day as work or billable time, but also building in things like time for for personal development and going down to minute details, like, you know, people need to take like little mini breaks to make themselves a tea, like that kind of thing. That's really important.
100%.
And I don't think that maybe gets considered enough when it comes to things like, you know, capacity and operational planning. So that sounds really good.
Yeah, it's very easy to just say, well, you know, somebody's doing 37 and a half hours a week. That means they can just smash through 37 and a half hours of work for our clients, and we can have outsized profits, and, you know, the owners can go home and buy a Ferrari at the end of the year because everything's brilliant. In reality, that means somebody is, you know, working themselves to the bone, grinding their fingers down on the keyboard every day. And I'm sure you've experienced, because you've worked in these kind of roles before, you need the headspace to be able to stop sometimes and think about what you're doing, to be able to reevaluate where you are, to reassess priorities across the different bits of work you've got going on, especially for delivery team members that are managing multiple different clients who are always coming at them with different requests and different ideas and different things they want to implement. That headspace bit is really, really important.
Yeah, it's important. It's important for everyone. And I think particularly to be creative, you know, when you're kind of so stuck in the day-to-day work, it's very difficult to take that step back and think a little bit more big picture or creatively. So it's nice that you're doing that. You mentioned as well, we've touched on now a couple of times, development of people, and you've mentioned you like, you know, investing in people. It's obviously got really good long-term benefits. You've been quite open about the value that you place on career development, and I know that you've gone as far as creating your own tool. I think it's called Flourish,
Yep.
which you use at Evoluted. Why do you think that career development is so important when it comes to company culture?
Sure. I mean, I guess not to get too meta and philosophical. Since the birth of humankind, you know, we've been driven to grow, to advance, to develop ourselves, to further ourselves, and it's what's built society as we know it. And all of the continual technological advances that we keep, you know, discovering and achieving and building as a worldwide community, and feeding that down into the micro level. The reality of work is that people want to grow, they want to progress, they want to advance their careers. They're not just here to do the same thing for 40 years and then retire or die. So for us, you know, that giving those opportunities for progression and really clear ways to achieve that, is the most important thing you can do for people, to stop them jumping ship, to improve your retention, to improve happiness. I think you also have more immediate problems if you don't approach career development properly, of elements of jealousy, of speculation, of, you know, bias that can creep in, both in the forms of employees and managerial bias. And if you don't have a proper career development structure in place, it can lead to a lot of negativity. It's something that we used to do really, really badly at Evoluted. You know, I'll hold my hands up and say that. And kind of 2-3 years ago now, in mid 2020, we addressed this head on and said, right, our performance reviews, our career development has been the standard. Once a year, come and sit down at the table with your manager, and we'll have a bit of a chat about how things are going. You know, are you happy in your job? And then you might have a finger in the air. Yeah, maybe you deserve a title change or a salary increase. We'll see. And there's nothing fair. There's nothing equitable. It's not equal across the company. There's no calibration or guidance on how to do that for different managers. And honestly, it wasn't great. You know, having been on both sides of that, the receiving end and the giving end, we said, no, this has to stop. Let's get a better way. So what we've actually done is move to a competency framework-based approach. And what that means is we have a 25 competency framework, which is spread across 5 different areas, which are technical skills, culture, team skills, delivery skills, and strategy skills. 4 of those, so team skills, technical skills, changes per job role in the company, because that focuses on whether you are a marketer, whether you're a developer, whether you're a business professional, whether you're working in project management or design. But the other 4 categories are consistent and constant across the entire company, because they're the values, the culture that we really, really we value, that we want people to reflect in their day-to-day, alongside that technical expertise. And basically what that does is allows us to have this really clear, fair assessment of all the things that matter to us and to our people. It allows us to measure what people are stronger in or weaker in. It allows us to have flexibility in job performance. Somebody might be amazingly technically skilled, but really, you know, a bit of an introvert, a bit too shy, and not massive on the kind of team and the account management side of things. Whereas somebody else might be the people pleaser, the really talkative person that loves to get out there, that loves to go and give talks and drive a lot of value for the company in many different ways, but is good at what they do rather than absolutely outstanding in the technical perspective. Recognizing those different skills and giving people the opportunities to grow equally, no matter how they're contributing to the company, was the most amazing development of this platform. A lot of competency frameworks you see are very ladder based, where you have to still tick all of the boxes in one level before you can go to the next. We made sure ours was flexible so that, like I just said, we can value people that bring different things to the company and their own unique skill sets. The final component that really fed into that for us was making sure we added transparency to how those reviews were conducted. So we have 25 different competencies. We then have our managers and their direct reports that fill out those things independently. So they're completely blind reviews before they come together and assess those things together. It removes that risk of managerial bias. It removes that the stress on the employee of having to come in and have everything ready for that one meeting. They can have time to think about things, to collect their evidence, to reflect on the last 6 months of work or whatever it might be, before they come together and discuss that in a fair and equitable way. That then links to another document we have, which just gives job titles and salary bands for every single role we have in the company, completely transparently. Anybody can see what those titles and salary bands are for anybody else in the company, so that as they increase through these competencies, it outputs a level for them, and they know, right, well, I am a 2.3, which makes me a senior executive. And if I achieve this, this, and this, I'll be able to grow to a specialist, which gives me a pay rise, a title change, more responsibilities. It's really transparent for people to see how they can grow and how their career can progress while they're at Evoluted, instead of having to look elsewhere and wonder, am I being underpaid? Is this fair? Is the person across from me, who I think is, doing about the same as me, paid 5 times more?
I absolutely love this, and I think we're very, very aligned in our thinking with this kind of thing. And to be honest, part of the reason I got into, well, actually much of the reason I got into doing what I'm doing is because of that. Like you say, maybe in the past it's not been great, even at Evoluted. But working at lots of different agencies where you just feel like you're doing a job, and that kind of career progression, that personal professional development is just not a focus. So it's great that you're able to give those pathways and, I guess, specific guidance, either from the more technical skill side of things or the developing certain behaviors side of things. I absolutely love that. And I think, like you say, giving that clarity to people and introducing that fairness, which is ultimately what it is, right? Because they're having to meet certain expectations against very clear, defined competencies. I think that's an amazing way to go. I guess what we talked a little bit about, that balance between technical and behavioral. I guess if there's someone watching this that maybe wants to develop in their career, where would you say more of that focus should be ideally?
I suppose it's very dependent on where the individual wants to go as well, right? For us, I mentioned those different job titles and salary bandings. We have both an individual contributor and management track for every single role in the company. So people that really love what they do, like I mentioned, I stepped down from a leadership role to go back into SEO because I loved it so much. If people want to grow and develop their skills there, focus on that technical side, be the best you can be inquisitive, be exploratory, and learn as much as you can. Some of the softer skills are still valuable to that. Things like, especially in the agency world, delivery skills around account management, around communication, around kind of getting out there and spreading your knowledge and mentoring people, really good. But if you're trying to go up the management side, some of those skills should be the focus rather than the technical bit. Something that I speak about with our managers a lot here, especially when they first step into management roles, is at a certain point, you will have to accept that your team are going to exceed you and outperform you from a technical perspective. You can't stay at the forefront of things if you are focused on being a great manager and a great leader. That's just the nature of it. Anybody out there who's watching this that's managed to do both, please come and tell me how you've done it, because I haven't discovered the secret yet. But if you are interested in going down that leadership route, work on those soft skills, the communication, the ability to empathize and give constructive feedback in the right way, the ability to work with initiative and develop risk-taking skills to make decisions when you don't have the full amount of information in front of you.
We've talked a lot, I guess, about other people and you kind of having, I guess, a very human centric leadership style at Evoluted. And obviously taking into account things like protecting your employees' mental health and things like that is clearly very important too. But I guess as we know, being a leader at an agency comes with a lot of pressure and stress, right? So I guess it would be good to hear perhaps how you look after yourself as well as a leader of an agency, from that perspective.
Yeah, honestly, I dreaded you asking me this question because this is where I am an absolute failure. Um, Despite banging on a lot about employee mental health, well-being, stress, reducing all of that as much as we can, I suffer massively from lots of stress, from imposter syndrome, from anxiety, from burnout, and I'm terribly bad at actually taking care of myself and trying to counteract that. Um, I barely used any of my annual leave last year. I haven't taken a holiday for about 18 months. I regularly cancel annual leave I've booked to kind of try and get through the overflowing to-do list. Um, and I know that, like you just mentioned, this is something that is fairly prominent amongst leaders, especially those that are in charge of leading entire businesses rather than just teams. And I think it's because in that position, you do deeply and genuinely care about the people you've got, the results you're driving, and you want to do the work to try and give them the best opportunities possible. It's like being a parent, right? You want to give the next generation more than you ever had. You want to make sure it's far better for them than anything you ever went through. And as a result of that, sometimes you can end up suffering yourself. Um, I think the important thing for me is that I've started to recognize those behaviors a lot more now, especially after a lot of people online have started talking more prominently about it, being honest about how they're feeling and the decisions they've made. Um, and this is really important. I recognize behaviors in myself when that anxiety starts to creep in and that overwhelm starts to creep in. And I describe it like a tornado in a cheesy B movie, right? If you've got this thing spinning around and every now and then you get like a cow pops out or a car or a street sign. And when my mind starts to feel like that, with all these conflicting thoughts going on and that inability to focus on anything, I'm starting to recognize I just need to step back. I need to take some time. I need to go and do something that gives me that intense focus on a specific thing for 15, 20 minutes. I'll go and play the drums. I'll go and play a game quickly. I will read a book or I'll do the washing up, something like that, where you can just have intense focus, just clears my brain, gets things sorted, and lets me get back to it. Still working on things, still trying to find out how to take care of myself as a leader with the stresses that come with that. Don't think I'll ever be perfect, but again, it's something that I'm open to learning and love to hear perspectives on from other people.
I think just recognizing that it's something to work on, but also that that taking a step back and getting yourself out of the situation. I really like that kind of just focusing your mind on one particular thing. I think as a leader where perhaps you're overseeing a lot of things going on, that's when the stress can start, right? It's loads of different priorities going on in your head, and it almost starts to get to the point where you're just overwhelmed and don't really know what to do and can start shutting down. So I guess having that focus on one thing gives you that time and space to almost like reprioritize things in your mind, would you say?
Absolutely. I strongly believe that we need to start recognizing that leaders suffer from these things as well. Just because you have shown the skill, competency, however you want to frame it, to have reached that position, doesn't mean that you are immune to any of the stresses that come with work. Spinning different plates, juggling lots of responsibilities. You might have had a difficult bit of communication with, a team member or a client or somebody else that is impacting and weighing on you. And it was actually yesterday I was flicking through TikTok, came across a management coach on there and talking about burnout, about stress and how to handle certain things. Honestly, went into the comments and they were absolutely shameful of people saying, well, if you can't deal with this, you shouldn't be a manager. If you can't take the pressure and not have that impact your work in your team, you shouldn't be a manager. That's not true. People need to accept that managers can be in the same position and they need just as much care from other managers, from senior leaders, from their own teams to give them that space sometimes as well. It's a two-way street in every sense.
Yeah, I mean, just as much. I would even argue more a lot of the time, because leadership is a very pressurized and stressful position. a position where I guess you need to balance the kind of minute operational planning with the kind of bigger creative ideas, and you need to wear so many hats and juggle so many things at one time. So actually realizing that leaders are human beings too, with these needs, and being able to, well, that need to kind of rest, and take stock is obviously incredibly important, right?
Yeah, still flesh and blood. We're not perfect.
All right, Giorgio, that's been great. I guess just to finish off, would you be able to kind of sum up with 3 of your tips for agencies that would want to create a good culture?
3 tips, yeah. So firstly, creating good culture, I would advise people to give their own people the opportunity to lead on how their culture develops. Your culture is not static; it's guaranteed to change over time as you grow. So instead of forcing it and trying to keep it the way it was when it started, go with the flow. Let your people lead the way. My voice is getting hoarse. You can see where I've been doing performance reviews recently. We at Evoluted do that in a little bit more structured way. We have kind of 4 cultural officers. So we give anybody in the company the opportunity to take on one of these roles for a year. And that is across happiness and wellbeing, diversity and inclusion, social events, and corporate social responsibility, giving people other than senior leadership the opportunity to develop that culture, to get feedback from the teams, to be in there in the trenches and understanding how our culture is changing, and then bringing that upwards into how we develop things at the agency has been immensely valuable. It lets you iterate faster. It lets you kind of introduce more things. And it means that as a manager, you're not the bottleneck on stuff. So tip number 1, let other people lead the way. My second tip would be to be present and lead by example. A bit rich after I've sat there saying about how stressed out I get and I don't take my annual leave properly. But, as a leader, take part in socials, chat to people online or in the office, genuinely care about what's going on with them. I think it's really obvious when you have a leader who isn't able to be present and only has those surface level interactions with their team and their people. Demonstrating those cultural values that you hold dear is also really, really important. Keeping your culture, keeping that culture growing is all about holding yourself accountable, taking responsibility when shit hits the fan, but at the same time, sharing the funny things you've seen on TikTok that day, joining in with karaoke at the Christmas party. Everybody got a lovely rendition of Phil Collins from me last year. Being there and being genuine is the best way to keep your culture growing. And the third tip is, I mentioned at the beginning, always be evaluating and reevaluating, seeking feedback for improvement. Culture changes, like I said a minute ago, it's always going to be shifting. It's always going to be developing as new people enter and old people leave your company. So don't just do something set and forget. Keep evaluating it, get feedback from your team, do anonymous surveys, use tools like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but applied from an employer and employee perspective, and keep reevaluating, keep trying new things, and keep understanding what you need to change and shift to keep that culture developing in a positive way rather than stagnating.
Brilliant tips, Giorgio. Thank you very much. If our listeners want to kind of connect with you and ask any questions, how can they get in touch?
Yeah, I've made it a personal goal of mine this year to start engaging more on social media and drop my boomer-esque level of social media engagement. I'd love to hear how people are approaching culture, how they're approaching work, how leaders are approaching, stress and burnout. So please do say hi to me on Twitter or LinkedIn, simply Giorgio Cassella on both. The challenge is spelling that, but I'm sure you'll be fine if you copy it out of the podcast title. Or if you want to get in touch by email, I'm giorgio@evoluted.email. And I guess finally, if you don't mind doing a bit of a push, if you do want to learn more about how we're doing our competency frameworks and how we're developing our performance reviews at Evoluted, you can go and check out joinflourish.io, see more about what we're building, and say hi if you fancy a bit of a demo for yourself.
Nice. I've seen the tool, I've seen the demo. Would definitely recommend checking it out. So yeah, thank you very much, Giorgio. Yeah, pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Thanks, Sean. It's been brilliant.
So that's that. I thought there were some brilliant tips from Giorgio in that episode. We talked about his views on people over profit. We spent a good chunk of time talking about career development and developing a fair, clear and consistent competency framework. And I thought he was quite honest in admitting that whilst he knows how important it is for leaders to look after their mental well-being, that this is still a learning process for him and that he needs to do more to get to where he wants to be. Of course, we finished with Giorgio's 3 tips for creating a great culture, which included letting your team lead the way, to be present as a leader and lead by example, and to always seek feedback and evaluate where you are and keep trying new things if you need to. As Giorgio mentioned at the end, you can check out Flourish, the tool which Evoluted have built for managing competency frameworks at joinflourish.io. Additionally, if you need any support building your competency framework, then this is a service that I offer as part of Reflect Consultancy. You can check out my website at reflectconsultancy.co.uk. Thanks so much for watching. As I said earlier, if you enjoyed the podcast, then please do like it and subscribe. I have some really great guests lined up to speak over the coming weeks. So subscribe and you'll be the first to know as and when new episodes go live. Cheers and see you soon.